2750 BC, it was said the ancient Egyptians were using this, copper. This is copper tube to BS EN 1057 table X or half hard R250 copper tube. And this is the standard copper tube we use as gas engineers and plumbers in the UK. In this video I'm going to show you how to do things like this. So, my name is Derek Robbins from Tomcat Gas Training, and this series of videos you're about to undertake is all about bending copper tube. So, the first bend we're going to be doing is this. So this is what we call a 90-degree bend, and this is what we call a double offset. But first of all, let me introduce you to this. This is a pipe bender. So let's have a look at these components. So first of all, the thing you can see here, this is a 15mm former. So this is going to form the bend. Okay, to help form the bend we need one of these. This is what we call a 15mm guide. There's also one for 22mm as well. Okay, and you can see it's shaped to fit over the pipe. Okay, so this will sit on the top of here with the piping. So if I put the pipe in, that will sit on top of there, and that will help stop the pipe from crushing. So it will keep a uniformed pipe because it will pretty much sit on top like that. Okay, so this is the hook or the keep at the back here. It keeps the actual pipe in position before you slide. So that is how it should be set up. So the hook or the keep keeps the pipe, because when I pull down it stops the pipe flicking up to make the bend, and you can see the guide and the former are completely covering the pipe to stop the pipe from trying to splay out from the side or crush completely. That will keep the shape. So when we bend a pipe, it actually gains, it actually stretches. So with a pipe bender, it's normally the diameter of the pipe it gains, but with a bending spring it could be twice the diameter. So depending on your bender, depending on how you're bending it. But your stretch should always go away from your measured end. So this is what we call our measured end, the first part. So whether this was the centre of a pipe or the side or the end, this is what we call our measured end, and we always work away from our measured end, so it gains after we've bent it. So to aid us, we have these two rollers. So there's one on the 22, one on the 22 there, one on the 15. And again, if they are loose or broken, you'll get ripples in your pipe. Also, if this is badly worn, this will also give you ripples in your pipe as well. And normally it ripples here. Okay, so you normally get rippling effect, and that's because the pipe's juddering. So just watch out for that. That could be wearing your wheel or on your guide, or even it's unlikely to be a former, but it's normally one of these two. So if they're loose or broken or stiff, you won't get a smooth bend. And then there are two handles then to be able to pull and bend your copper tube. So this part here, there's some square flats on there, and that's normally where you would, if you had a vise, you could fix it in a vise, but I'm not going to show you any bending in a vise because I'm trying to show it like you would do if you were on site. So we've got 15 and 22mm formers on this bender. So then we've got two wheels doing the pipe, and we've got two hooks to keep the pipe in place. So that's a quick guide to the pipe bender. Now, first video I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a 90-degree bend. So first thing, got a piece of 50mm copper tube. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be bending a 90-degree bend. So if we look at the pipe bender, we're going to look at bending it 90 degrees round here. Now we're going to do it a set distance, and the way we're going to do this is what's called the loose pipe method. So I'm going to do my first bend 150mm, which is going to be from the end of the pipe to the centre of the bend. Now, what I'm going to do is put it in the bender. So we need to put the bender like this, and the pipe is going to go into the former like that. Now we need the 15mm guide, and I'm just going to use that and pull the handle a little bit just so it stays in position for me. Now I'm just going to get a scrap piece of copper, and this is where this loose pipe method comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the pipe in, and where the centre meets the mark is where I want to be. So I need to come back a little bit, so I'm banging the centre. Now I can even use set square. Now whether you've got a set square with you or not, I don't know, but there you go. And the set square can also tell us if we're banging the centre or not. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand the bender up, just pull it a little bit so it doesn't move. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the pipe so it bends around the corner. So the stretch is going away from my measurement. So the pipe will gain, but I don't care because it'll be pushing it that way, because this will be a fixed point. So my fixed point from here to the centre of the pipe will be 150mm, hopefully, when we've bent it. So just going to bend the pipe around now. Now what we're aiming for is a square bend. Now what we have to do is we have to slightly over bend it, because once I release the pressure it will spring back. So again, some benders have these marks already on. They might go 30 degrees, 45, 90. We can also use a set square to help us to see whether we're square or not. So if we release the pressure, and we can now see whether we are around about where we are. It's not a million miles out, so I can now take that out. Let's put that to one side, and let's use the square now and see whether we are square or not by standing it up. And that is, I don't know whether you can see that, but that is pretty good. That's pretty square with the table. Now then, measuring it. Now, little trick for you. If you want to find the centre line of your pipe, just place something metal on the edge and scrape across like that. It is actually better if it's a dirty pipe. So we've scratched across it, and that should give us our centre measurement. So remember, from the end of there to the centre of there, we want 150mm. So if I place this now, this straight edge, on the centre of the pipe, on that mark I've just made, and I get my tape measure, it should be from there to the end of the pipe, which is there, 150mm. So that is the first bend done. Now, next thing I want to do is I want a double offset, and I'm going to measure from the centre of there to the centre of my pipe. I want 200. So we're going to go like this way, so like an S or a Z. We're going to come round this way. So again, I need to place that to the centre of the pipe. I'm going to measure 150, and I've got to be as accurate as I can. Inaccurate with your measuring, then your bend's going to be inaccurate. So that is where my pipe needs to be in the centre of there to allow me to bend it this way. Now, I need to put it in the back in the bender. So if we get the pipe bender again, get rid of all the junk. I need to put it in this way. Now I'm going to bend it around this way, so I have to make sure it goes in the bender that way. Again, I'm going to put the guide in. Remember, this is the guide, this is the former. So again, with my loose pipe, I'm going to be putting it back in the centre again, so as close as I can. But I've also got to make sure that this is straight as well, so I'll look at that in a minute. So let's make sure I've got this in the right spot. So again, I can use my set square if you've got one to make sure I'm in the centre. And this time I'm going to stand it up, but before I bend it, I've got to square this pipe up with the handle. Again, I could use a straight edge, so I could put a straight edge on there like that and make sure it's straight like that, or I can use the handle to make sure it's straight. So now again, I need to pull it 90 degrees. That's my shoulder squeaking, not the pipe. And I wonder why I've had 2 major operations on my shoulder. Anyway, so again, I'm pulling it 90 degrees. I've overbent it a little bit. If we underbend it, we can always put it back in, and if we overbend it, we can always pull it back again. So if we want to pull it back, just need to give it a tweak on the bench like that. Now, let's just check and make sure it's something like square. So that's not a million miles out. Now, 150 we require now, from the centre of there to the centre of there. So again, I'm going to place that in the centre as close as I can. And again, I'm going to get my my tape rule, and I should be 150 mil from the centre to centre. And that's how you bend a double offset using the loose pipe method. Now, before I go on to the next bend, I want to just quickly show you another way of doing it. So I've already pulled a 90 degree bend, so let me just get that out of the way. So what I've got here is, I've measured from the end of my pipe to this mark here of 100 millimeters. I've then placed the 100 millimeters on the edge of the former, and then I've pulled the bend. I need to find the distance from the end of there to the centre of the pipe where it finishes. So I need to measure from that distance. So this should accurately give me that measurement. So if I then place it like that, and I now put that on the centre line there, and I now measure that distance. So that distance is from the centre of the pipe to the end of there. It looks 65 mil. Yeah, 65 millimeters. So that means if I knock that 100 out, from the end of there to the centre of there is 65 mil. Now then, if I wanted to do a double offset going that way, what I would have to do is, and I wanted to do 150 mil, so again I would place that, just get it in the centre. So I would place that in the centre. I would measure down my 150 mil. Still trying to stop getting a big fat head in the way. 150 mil, which is there. I would now go back 65 mil. So that is where I put it into the father. So I'll have to go all the way around because I want to bend it the opposite way. So that would be around there. So I'll replace that now. Onto the edge of there. Place in the guide. So still making sure that it's on the line. So now I would stand it up, square it up, and now pull my 90-degree bend again. And again, I can use my set square to see whether I'm somewhere near. So now, if I put my straight edge here, again, I should be, from the end of there, so centre to centre again, I should be 150 mil. Centre to centre, that needs to bend round a little bit more because it's not quite 90. But you can see it's not a million miles out. Obviously if I go up there, it's 155, that means that needs putting back in the bender a little bit. As you can see, it's not quite square, needs pulling around a little bit more. So if I put that back in. Making sure it goes back fully in. Again, if I've overbent it, I can just pull it back a little bit. And you can see now that when I hold that square there is 150. Before we dive into making this bend, it's important that we understand angles and different types of angles we're going to use when we're pipe bending. Now the most common angles which I've already talked about are 60 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees. They're the kind of the average angles as a plumber gas engineer we use when we're bending copper tube. So the other main thing we need to understand when we are bending these angles are whether we're bending it too steep or too shallow, or whether we can fit it into the pipe bender. So before we crack on bending angled pipe, we're going to look at how we're going to get angles, how we're going to produce something like this, which we can keep with us, and what our limitations are with a pipe bender. So let's have a look at that now. Now, first thing we're going to do is let's have a look at the limitations of the pipe bender itself. So I've just pulled a 90-degree bend and I want to do a double offset. So if I get my loose pipe, now you see the hook. Let's have a look at this first. So you see the hook, where the hook is in its position. That's the closest really you should be able to put it to this bend. Okay, because if you move it further over and you try to bend it, that end there will actually end up digging in the bend. So this really is the minimum double offset I can make. Okay, the reason why I'm going through this is why we have to use offset bend rather than double 90s. So if I do the loose pipe method, And again, I put that in the centre, and I can use my square and now mark the centre there. Okay, so that is the minimum centre mark this pipe bender will produce. So let's have a look at measuring that and see what it actually comes out at. Now I've got my set square laid out, and this is our centre to centre measurement. So the minimum centre measurement I can make with this setup is 135 mil. Okay, so that's the centre there. So round about 135 mil is the minimum double offset I can make. And this is why we have to do offset bends, to get us closer than that distance. Okay, so let's have a look first at actually producing this little table I've made, which will help us to do the angles for these bends before we crack on and start actually producing these offsets. So let's have a look at making these angles. So the first thing I need to do is just draw a straight line, and it doesn't really matter how long this straight line is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 marks on it. So I'm going to put one there and one there. That I'm going to call A, and that I'm going to call B. Now the next thing I need to do is use my compass to do about 1/3 of the way down the line, and I'm just going to place the compass on the A point and do a semicircle back. Okay, now I'm going to place the compass this time on the end of the semicircle. So the semicircle I've just done is 180 degrees. And the first angle we're going to do is 60 degrees. So now, if I dissect through those 2 marks with my straight line, that angle there now is 60 degrees. Now, if I wanted to do a 30 degree, I keep my compass at the same distance. So just check I haven't moved it. Okay, it's important that it's at the same distance. And I now go onto this mark again and do a mark up here. And then I go onto the 60 degree mark and do another mark. Now my distance through those 2 marks has now dissected the 60 degree. So that's now given me 2 30 degrees. Now if I wanted to do a 120 degree, again, making sure my compass is at the same distance, I go onto the 60 degree mark, put a mark, now dissect that line, that angle there now is 120 degrees. And if I wanted a 90 degree, I need to dissect those 2 between the 60 and the 120, because halfway between is 90. So just check and make sure. So put a mark, it hasn't moved, mark on that one, go to this one, dissect my line, and I go through that line and that now gives me 90 degrees. Now the last angle I'm going to do is a 45 degree angle. So this is 90, so half of 90 is 45. So this time I need to go longer than where I was doing before, and I need to go onto here and do a mark. And again, make sure I don't move the compass, and make my other mark. And now I can dissect the two lines again. And that final angle is our 45 degrees. And that's how easy it is to find out different angles to help you when we're doing our pipe bending. Let's have a look at this 30-degree angle and see how we can use this angle to actually help us in the bending. So I've now just got the angles. So if I wanted to transfer them onto anything, I can basically get a piece of solder and I can bend it to my desired angle. I know now that roughly that piece of solder is a 30-degree angle, so that can help me do my bending. So if I wanted to transfer this angle onto my bender, so this is the 30-degree we've just made, I can place this on round about where the bending mark is, and I would bend my pipe so it's round about there. Should give me my 30 degrees. So let's have a look. Let's bend it to the mark. So the mark is in the center of the pipe. So I don't know whether you got that, but just let the spring go off. And now we can check the angle is 30 degrees. And there you go, we've just bent a perfect 30-degree angle using the solder. Now I've pulled a series of bends so we can have a look at them. So the first one, we've got a 30 degree, this is a 45 degree, this is a 60 degree, and this is the 90-degree bend. So let me try and explain why we need these different angles. So if we were to go around this 28mm pipe, if we look at the 90-degree bend and we want to go around it, we're going to struggle, because if we want to pull another 90-degree bend here, it's going to be massively over the top. Now if that was a hot water pipe and that was a cold water pipe, we would need about we would need a minimum of 25mm gap between the two pipes. Okay, now we need to just worry about our starting point, because the clips would always give us the same distance. So that one would be out of the reckoning. Now if I wanted to go over using this 60 degree and I want to go around it here, again because of the limitations where the bender is, we would be looking, it's going to be up here again, so we've got another massive big difference. If we go over the 45, we're getting closer to the pipe, okay, and we should just about be able to get over that 28mm with that. But if we look at the 30 degree, okay, you could see we get tighter than we would do with the 45, okay, because the 45 would be around there and that would be closer there, so our 25mm gap. So for getting around this pipe, we would be better if we used a 30-degree angle. Now what we kind of say is, if the distance is less than 50mm, a 2-inch, then you could actually need to use less than the 30-degree angle, okay? But the less of the angle we've got, the closer we could get to it. So we've still got to make a judgment on which angle we do use, but we've always got to remember, if this is a hot pipe and a cold pipe, we need to keep them 25mm away from each other so we don't get heat transfer. And we've also got to think about, what does it look like? Does it look neat? Okay, so what we're going to do is, we're going to have a look at these offset bends. We're going to see what the minimum offset bend we can make in the bender, okay, which will look right and work correctly. So let's start making these bends now. Now let's have a look at the minimum size we can make this 60-degree angle. So if I actually place it in the actual bender and I put the guide in, you can see we still need the hook to actually go at the beginning of the bend, or the end of that bend. But remember, our stretch is going this way, so this is our measured end. But we're going to look at how we're going to measure a certain offset. Now what we've got to do with this is we've got to actually bring the bend around here. So let's first of all stand it up and square it up, okay? And let's pull this bend around. Now, we need to get that parallel and square with that. So if I look down that now, we need a set distance. We need the distance to be right there. So if I just measure centre to centre, that's 90, round about 90mm. Okay. So the minimum for this 60 we can make is about 90mm because of where the hook goes in the bender. So if we take this 45 piece of pipe now, and again I need to stand it up and square it up, and again I need to bend it to around about the right distance. So let's get our set square, take off the pressure, get it in square. We'll look at these a bit closer, but that one is looking around about 65mm. Okay. Now we've got this 30-degree, so let's stand it up, square it up, and let's bend that one. Again, let's make sure we're parallel, and that one's looking something like 45mm. Okay, so let's have a closer look at these bends and let's see what these minimum measurements actually do come out as. So if we look at this 30-degree angle first, what I've done is I've got the two set squares. The distance from the bottom to the bottom is the same as centre to centre. So centre to centre is the same as bottom or top to top. So I'm going to measure this gap here to see what they come out at. So I've put those in line with each other. We can now move that out of the way, and we have a distance of about 41mm. Okay, so that's the first distance for the 30mm offset. Now let's do the same for the 45mm. Let's see what that comes out at. So that's the 45mm angle. Let's give that a measure, see what that one comes out at. And that one's coming out about 61mm. And now let's finish with the last one, the 60-degree one, which is nowhere near square, this bend, but there you go. It's just a way of showing you. So, and this one is about 85mm. Okay, so that's the distances, that's the minimum pulled bend distances we've got from these different angles. Okay, now Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how to bend this to a given measurement. So let's get on with that. Now I'm going to show you now how to do a parallel offset at 60 millimeters centers. So let's have a look and see which angle we're going to pick. So if we pick the 60-degree angle and we look at that and we place that on the line, you can see there's no way at 60 mil centers we're going to be able to use this 60-degree angle because of the actual minimum bend we can make. So that's out of the question. Now if we look at the 30-degree one first before we look at 45, you can see we can actually use this 30-degree angle, but we'd have to, the steeper, the pitch would be steeper here, or the angle would be steeper here. So, but we could use the 30-degree. If we look at the 45, we can see our minimum distance, we looked at it before, was 61 mil, or around about 60 mil. So it gives us no play whatsoever, 45 degrees for a 60 millimeter offset. So the one I'm going to use and what I'm going to show you, we'll be doing and using the 30 mil, and we'll just extend the piece of pipe before we bend it around. Okay, so let's get on with showing you how to do a parallel offset to 60 mil. Now the first thing we're going to do on this, making this offset to 60 millimeters with a 30-degree angle, is I've got a length of tube and the tube is 400 from length to length. Now this is 100 mil, so basically I've just done a mark 100 mil from our measured end. Now I'm just going to show you this because it's important where we put this in the pipe bender now. So what I've done is I've marked the 100 mil and I've put a line across the centre. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then I've got my drawing and I've got my actual piece of solder to bend to my 30 degrees. So I'll get the bender, open it up, and this is the important part about this first thing is I'm going to put the guide in. Okay, so we've got the hook over, we've got the pipe in, and this cross needs to meet where the guide and the former actually meet. So it's important, and that's going to put it in the centre of the bend for us. So I'm just going to stick my big fat head in the way just to make sure, and you can see this cross where the cross is now. So I'm now going to stand it up to bend it. Well, I'll spin it around so I can bend it, and I'm just again going to check and make sure that my line and cross are exactly where the bender and the former and the guide meet, and that should put us in the centre of the bend. Now the first thing I need to do is I'm just going to pull it a little bit so it doesn't move, and then make sure I've got my 30 degrees, which I have. I'm going to place that there. So you can see that is round about, that mark I've made there is round about where the centre of the pipe needs to be. So I'm just going to pull that to something like, and again I'm just going to take the spring off and then check and make sure that our angle is somewhere like, and it is. So that's about enough now. Okay, so let's take this out of the bender and see if we actually have bend on the centre line of the pipe. You can see now that this mark has ended up in the centre of the bend where we want it to be. Okay, and that's important that we know where this centre mark is. Now then, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place this on the line and mark where this 60 mil line comes but if I did my mark across there and then put it in the bender, it would be the wrong way. So what I've got to do is I've actually got to put it that way round to mark it. Otherwise, when I put it in the bender, I'll have my mark. So that's another important tip as well, to make sure you've actually marked it on the right side. Otherwise, we'd have to put it back on the board again and mark it again. So I'm just going to get my big fat head in the way again, and I'm going to place this on top of the black line. Okay, now I've used a marker pen, and it would be a lot easier if you used a pencil rather than a marker, but you'll be able to see it with this. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to eye up over the top and actually mark, without getting my head in the way, where this line is, going across there, and I'm then going to mark the centre again. So that's going to be my bending point. Okay, so that's where I'm going to do my bending point, and then hopefully this is going to work out correct. So I need to put this back into the bender again, because we've actually put the line in the right place. Hopefully I can now put that like that. Now again, I need to stand it up and square it up, because if I don't square it up, then I'm going to end up with a crooked bend. And now I need to pull it till that runs parallel round here. Okay. Now I know the mark I've made there is round about the centre line. Okay. So, it should spring back now, and it should be pretty flat. Which is pretty flat. Now, if I put that centre to centre on there, or top of the line to top of the line, it should have a 60mm. Now you can see that's slightly bent too far over, so I can just pull it back a little tiny bit, and I can now put the line on top of the line, looking down from the top. And that is a 60mm offset. Now this is the bend we're going to produce. Okay, so we're going to produce one of these, but we're going to make it to fit over a box of 100mm high, 100mm wide, sorry, and 60mm high. So we're going to be doing a continuation, I can't find that one either, of the bend we made in part 2. Okay, but this time we're going to do it with 2 passovers. Okay, now this is one I just found out of the scrapbook, so it's not one I've done, but there you go. Now, so I've got this box, 100mm by 60mm. Now I've got a piece of copper here which is 600mm long. Well, it's actually 604mm long. So I've cut it in half, so we've got a centre mark there now of 300 that way and 300 that way. Now, because of the stretch of the copper, we have to do this in 2 ways. So we're actually going to produce like a pair of handlebars. Okay, so the first bends we're going to be doing are the 2 at the top. Okay, like we did in episode 2 where we pulled the first bend. Because of the stretch, that's the same thing we're going to do. Now, the first thing I've got to do is mark where I want my first bend to go. Okay, so we want our first bend to go right on the edge of the 100mm. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all the way around. Now this is important that you go all the way around. So we've got 100mm all the way around. Now Again, I need to pull my 30-degree angle. So got my piece of copper again, and I'm going to pull the 30-degree. Now it's exactly the same as what we did in episode 2, where we actually put it in the bender, mark it where the guide meets the former, and that's where we're going to pull it to the angle. So let's get on and pulling these two bends first. So notice this time I didn't make a cross in the centre, I actually made a mark on the actual pipe bender itself. So that is exactly where we want it. So again, stand it up and let's bend it, because we know that's the centre point. So just take off the pressure, make sure we've got our angle. Okay, so a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more to the centre. So that's our centre. So that is our 30-degree angle. Now I'm going to pull another angle exactly the same on the other side. So I'm just going to do a little cheat now. I'm just going to mark here on the actual guide, on the former, sorry, on the other side, the 22mm former. I've just made a mark where the handle goes, and I'm going to pull to those two marks, and it should give me exactly the same distance on the other side. So I should now be able to pull to that line and to this mark. So let's have a look, see if it works out. So we're on the two marks now, and that should give us, again, let's just check and make sure that's not moved. That should give us, again, the 30 degrees. So it's not a million miles out. Now, that should be right on the marks where we made it, and ready now for our bends the other way. Now, like we did before, make sure we're on top of the lines, and again I'm going to mark looking over the top there and looking over the top there, and then make sure I mark the centre on each side. So next thing we've got to do now is we've got to bend these two angles this way. Okay, so let's get on with that. So I've put my mark back in the bender where it needs to be, and this time now I'm going to pull it, but I'm not going to pull it until now I get myself a straight edge and I can run it through the two marks. So we've got a mark here and the centre mark there. So we know on the guide it's there, and we know that's going to be our centre mark there. So this now should aid me to pull the correct angle, okay, for that first piece. So hopefully you can see that it's gone right the way through now. So on that mark there, and we're onto we're running parallel. We can now take this out of the bender and we can do the other side. So get the next pipe in the bender where it needs to be, somewhere around there. Again, stand it up and square it up, making sure it's somewhere near. And again, using our straight edge, we should be able to pull it through so it runs the same way. So centre to centre, A little bit more. And that should be somewhere close. So, if we put that on the lines now, it's not a million miles out. I wouldn't say it's the most perfect bend I've ever produced in my life. So that's how we do a complete passover. Okay, so that's called a full passover. 30-degree angle with a block we're going over, okay, 100 mil. Now, next couple of bends we're going to be doing now is we're going to get slightly more complicated. So we're going to be producing a partial passover like this and a full passover, which will be continuing the pipe along there to a given measurement. So these are probably the two hardest bends you will ever do. So without further ado, let's get on with producing a partial passover first. Now, first thing is I've got a piece of pipe, 400 long. Okay, doesn't really matter about the length of the pipe at the moment, but 400 is going to help me to get it into the pipe bender. So the first thing I need to do is mark out the job what we're going to be doing. Now, the job is we've got a piece of 28 mil. We've got, this is a hot water pipe, and the pipe we're bending is a cold water pipe, so we need 25 mil from the top of this pipe to the bottom of the pipe what we've got. So what I've done is, this is our finishing point, this is the starting point of our bend, which is 80 mil centre to centre from the bends, okay, and we've got this 25 mil above. So we've got this set triangle what we're going to try and produce, okay, so we're going to be going this way around. Now, what I've done is I've drawn a line from centre to centre to give me some idea of the angle I require, because it's the angle what's the important bit. Okay, so we've got the 28 mil pipe we're going to be passing over the top of it. So, first thing I need to do is find the angle of what I'm going to be producing, and the way I'm going to do that again is by using my trusty solder, even though I called it copper pipe before. Anyway, it's not, it's solder. So you can see from here I've kind of bent through the centre of each of the angles, the pipe, sorry, to get the angle. Okay, if we was to look at it on our little drawing, you can see it's between 60 and 90 degrees, so it's not quite 90 degrees the bend we're going to be pulling, and it's important that we use this angle, otherwise it ain't going to be working. So the first thing I've got to do is I'm going to place the pipe on the back side of the pipe, so, or where the pipe would be. Now this is just going to allow us some extra pipe to be able to cut it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try again keep my big fat head out of the way, because I'm going to also mark the back of the pipe here with my big thick marker pen. So just going to mark where the edge of the pipe is there. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around because it makes it easier to go all the way around. Okay, so we've got all the way around with our big black marker. So that is the distance what we're looking for. Okay, so that's our starting distance. Now, the next thing we're going to do is bring in our bender. Okay, so first thing we need to do is put our loose pipe in again and put in our guide just to keep the pipe in, and this is going to help us find the bending point of where we're going to bend. So we need to bring in our angle, and we're going to place the angle so it's on the edge of the pipe, so this is running parallel and it's on the edge of the guide here, well, the former here. So you can see our bending point is now going to be around here. Okay, so it's not quite that mark there, so it's about here, but not a million miles out. So what I have to do now is take this out, get my piece of pipe, place it in till it's going to be about here, the mark. So it's about there, and this is going to bend our centre of the pipe. Okay, so it wants to be around about there somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to pull this angle now. First of all, I'm going to, as usual, stand it up, just give it a bit of a kick just so it doesn't move, but I also want to make sure my angle's still the same, which it is. And I'm now going to bend this pipe to that angle. Okay, so it's just short of that mark there. So let's try that first. Kind of to that, a little bit more but not much. Let's try that now. So the first thing is, that mark should be in the centre of the bend, which, whoa, that's worked out okay so far. So our bending point was not a million miles out. Now we need to look at our angle, and we can see we're not far out on the angle as well. Now we're never ever going to get it perfect with this triangle, but this mark here needs to go onto the centre, onto the flat, and you can see now that that is pretty damn perfect where we want it. So the pipe's going through the centre there, it's running along the edge of the centre there, so we're pretty much where we want to be. So what I'm going to do now is, like we've done with all the other bends, is we're going to mark this here. But if I mark it on this side, it's going to end up not being able to see the mark in the bender. So I need to flip it over. Now you know why I put this second circle here, because again, that's where we're going to end up going. That's where we need to be, and what I need to do now is, as usual, mark across the line there. Okay, and mark the centre line. So we mark our cross again. So that's going to be our bending point again, okay, when we put it back into the bender. So out comes our bender and our mark, and now we know the mark has to go onto the side of the guide there now. So we're going to be following that line. So it needs to be on the edge like that. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Now again, I need to stand it up and square it up. Make sure it's in line with the handle again, otherwise I'll have a wonky bend. That's not a million miles out. Now then, the angle we're going to pull it. So we need to pull this so it runs parallel again through, because this is going to end up on the base of our line, so we're going to pull it through. So again, to get the right angle, we can go through the centre of the pipe there and run it through there to give us our angle. Now, hopefully that is the right angle we need for it to go straight across. Where we need to be with the angle. Okay, if we now put the piece of 28mm there, and we get our steel rule and we measure and see if we are 25mm away. And you can see we are pretty much bang on, if we put it in the right spot, 25mm away. And if we hold that like that, you can see that's touching the floor. Okay, so that's touching the board, and that's touching the board. So that's worked out exactly where we wanted to bend it. And that's our first partial passover with a 25mm above, the pipe's 25mm above this 28mm pipe. Now if we wanted to make a shallower angle with a smaller pipe, we would do exactly the same and it would come out with a lot shallow angle. I've just chosen this because it's easier to see being this big. But again, if we were making that smaller, then the angle could actually be less steep, or we could actually go steeper if we're higher. So that gives you some idea of the partial passover. Now let's do a full passover. Next bend we're going to produce is the full passover. Okay, and again we're going to do this to a given height. We're going to do pass over a 22mm pipe. So let's get on with that. Now, got a piece of pipe just under 400mm, and again I've put it in the centre. Now, angles again. We're only passing over 22mm pipe. Okay, so if I do a really steep angle, so 60 degrees, something like that, we could end up with the pipe being too tight to get in the bender. If we bent it at 30 degrees, then we could end up with it looking ridiculous. It could be too far away. So depending on what your offset needs to be, we're going to be using 45 degrees for this, around about 45 degrees, and see what it looks like, see what it comes out like. So what I've done now is I've got my, as usual, I've got my solder. It's not copper pipe, it's solder, and I've remarked on my board now a 45 degrees. So we can see that's 45 degrees. Now again, I've got my pipe, we've got the good old pipe bender, and again I'm going to put the pipe and find the actual bending point as usual. So again, this time I'm going to get my 45 degree, where's my black marker. Again, I'm going to put it on the edge, and again my bending point is about there. Okay, so that's going to bend to around about the centre of the bend. So let's see if it works out. So I'll put my mark actually on the mark on the pipe, actually on the mark on the guide. And as usual, I'm going to stand it up. Don't need to square it up yet because it's one bend, and I'm going to bend it to the 45 degrees, which is around there. So that's not a million miles out of 45 degrees. Okay, now let's see if we were in the centre. A little out, nothing spectacular. Okay, now this is a 22mm pipe we're going over, and like we've done on all the others, what we need to do is we need to make a straight edge so it actually, we can mark it. But we need to mark it on both sides. That's the important bit, is marking it on both sides, and marking it on both sides accurately. So what I do is I bring it to the edge of the table, and hopefully you're going to see this. So I'm going to try and balance this and keep out of the way of it. So we need to get it looking symmetrical with the end of the bench. Okay, when we're happy with that, again, what we need to do is, as usual, we need to mark, again I'm moving this, but there you go, we need to mark across the bench, but we also need to use the edge of the bench to mark across the end. And we're going to do the same on the other side, so hopefully you can see it. And again, I'm going to mark down the edge. Okay, and again, I'm going to mark the centre of the pipe. And if we flick it over, we should have 2 marks on there. And we mark the centre of the pipe. And that's going to be our bending point on the mark we've made on the pipe bender. So let's bring the pipe bender back. And we're going to place that mark now on the mark on the bender. And you can see the hook or the stop is just about right where we want. If we'd done a different angle, we could have had the hook would have been in the wrong place. And again, as usual, I'm going to stand it up and square it up. So that looks something like. And again, just going to pull it a little bit so it doesn't move. And again, we're going to use our straight edge to go through the centre of the guide, the former, sorry, and the centre of our mark, and pull that angle until it goes through the centre. Now, if we made the mark on the other side, we can now flip it over, because the mark's there, put it in the same place as before, so the centre of the mark on the former to match up with the pipe. And again, stand it up and square it up to make sure it's running straight. And now we can pull that angle to the same as the other one. So that should be something like that. So hopefully now that bend is flat and our 22mm pipe will pass just underneath it. So that is how you do a full passover to 22mm. And that is the end of our videos on copper pipe bending. So if you've liked this video, why don't you give us that thumbs up, because it shows me you care, or leave a constructive comment down below. If you want me to make any other videos, leave a comment down below and I'll try to do that. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then get subscribing, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, because I release videos every Wednesday. All I've got to say is thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and join me next Wednesday for the next video. Cheers guys!